I have the hearing loss I was born with. I was born with a hearing loss. I was not able to wear a hearing aid until I was a teenager because the technology was just not suitable for someone who could hear a little bit in one ear and nothing in the other ear. So I had to wait until the analog hearing aids were good enough for me to use. And then I've been wearing the digital. So a lot of the names that you mentioned are familiar to me. I wear a Phonak now. I have had an Oticon. I have had a Siemens. I've had many brands as the technology has improved. So today, what I want to talk about is over-the-counter hearing aids, because this is a new category being created by the FDA that will help people with mild to moderate hearing loss. But there's some confusion and some controversy, so I wanted to share with you what that is. So now I want to make sure my screen changed. Do you now see over-the-counter hearing aids? Okay. The first time I talked to this group, I had a impressive PowerPoint that no one saw. So I figured I would just check. So the over-the-counter hearing aid law passed in 2017, but it's likely we won't see over-the-counter hearing aids officially on the market for another year or so. The FDA process is long, but it was made even longer with the pandemic because they were a little busy approving vaccines and they weren't thinking about hearing aids. So the reason it takes so long is that the FDA has to come up with rules that what qualifies as an over-the-counter hearing aid. Now, there are manufacturers that are making devices that are amplifiers, and they want to call them hearing aids, but they're actually somewhat dangerous because they just amplify everything and they could actually harm your hearing. So those are devices that the Hearing Loss Association does not want the FDA to allow to use the word hearing aid. And the Hearing Loss Association, their recommendations to the FDA is that the devices must be affordable, they must be safe, they can't harm your hearing, and they must be effective. They should help you with your hearing. They need to be labeled, they need to be described. There must be something you could do if the product doesn't deliver, right? You need to be able to return it if it doesn't do something it's supposed to. And one of the things that we've been promoting is a trial period. So many of the devices want it to be that if you buy it, you own it, and if it doesn't work for you, too bad. We find that there's a period of time to adjust to a hearing aid. So we're saying if this is a real hearing aid, you need to have a trial period. And then we also want a consumer education program so that people can be aware of what is not a real over-the-counter hearing aid. So the rulemaking comments closes this month, and then the FDA will come out with the rules, and then the manufacturers would need to make adjustments. So someone mentioned Bose. When the law passed, Bose was starting to do research. They saw this as a market opportunity. So they've been making devices hoping that it will fit the new over-the-counter hearing aid laws and the new rules. So if there's something in the rules that they need to make adjustments to, they might need another year to put their product out. But if their product currently fits what works, then they'll be able to roll that out as an over-the-counter hearing aid. So let me start with some definitions because this is important. We're talking about different levels of hearing loss. A mild hearing loss is really the target of an over-the-counter hearing aid. Someone with a mild hearing loss probably turns up the TV. They do okay on the phone. They might want more volume. They can benefit from a hearing aid, but they're not going to use most of the features that are in a hearing aid that you would go to Mass Eye and Ear and buy. So they probably aren't getting a hearing aid, even though it would help them, because it's just so expensive and is more than what they need. Someone with a moderate loss, my loss is a moderate loss. I can't understand the TV unless I have it really loud. I like having the captions on. I do okay on the phone if it's somebody I know, but I can't do it for a long period of time. Sometimes, I need captions. I definitely benefit from a hearing aid, and I need the features that are there. A severe hearing loss is someone who they're not able to hear the speech when somebody's talking at a normal level. So they need volume, but even with all the volume, they don't get all the frequencies. So someone with a severe loss, they can't understand anybody on the telephone. They have to use a captioned phone. They can't understand the TV. They have to watch the captions. Okay. And so they need not only just a hearing aid, but they need one of the most powerful hearing aids and all the assistive devices. And they might actually be a candidate for cochlear implant. So the over-the-counter hearing aids are not going to help somebody with a severe loss. The over-the-counter hearing aids are only going to help somebody with a mild, maybe a moderate loss. And a profound hearing loss, this is what my sister has. She doesn't hear the TV at all. She just uses the captioning. She doesn't even have a telephone. She just uses text. And no hearing aid helps her. And she's culturally deaf, so she doesn't want a cochlear implant. She lives in Rochester, New York, where there's a big deaf community. So she's quite content with it the way it is. So mild and moderate is what the over-the-counter hearing aids are targeting. Some more definitions. Let's talk about the devices. So a hearing aid is amplification that is different in different frequencies. And the hearing aid has signal processing to help improve the sound understanding, especially speech. And it has algorithms that if the sound is too loud, it will clamp it and make it so that you won't damage the hearing you have. And there are hearing aids made for mild, moderate, and severe losses. Now, they're complicated enough that you have to be fitted by an audiologist or a hearing instrument specialist. So if you can't go to CVS and buy a hearing aid, you have to go to Mass Eye and Ear or an audiologist or a hearing instrument specialist. So that's a hearing aid. That's the official term right now for a hearing aid. A personal sound amplification product called a PSAP just gives you amplification. And the problem with it is that if you have a loud sound, it will damage your hearing, especially if you use it over a long period of time. So those are available now. They are not allowed to market to people with hearing loss. They do. They get away with it, but the FDA does not allow it. Some of them do. If you look online, you'll find them. What they tend to do is they market to bird watchers so that you can hear those birds, or hunters. They market to hearing people who want amplification. And then, oh, by the way, if you just need a little amplification, this will help. There are some devices that are clearly labeled as sound amplification, not hearing aids, that you will find in hearing loss products. And I'm showing a picture of one on the right. That's a pocket talker. It's just an amplifier that you wear with headphones, but it doesn't protect your hearing if you make it too loud. So you have to be careful with them. And they're also limited. They can't amplify more than 40 decibels so that a normal conversation wouldn't damage your ears, but a loud sound will. So the over-the-counter hearing aid is a hearing aid designed for mild to moderate hearing loss that is simple enough that you don't have to have a specialist set it up for you. And this is not available yet. So this is officially, there's no such thing as an over-the-counter hearing aid right now. This is a future category that the FDA is creating. When I say a hearing aid for mild hearing loss, I mean something that has amplification that can be adjusted to the frequencies. Think about an old component stereo where you were able to modify the treble and the bass. That's the level of tuning you would be able to do. You could change the volume. You might have something that looks like an equalizer or a bass and treble adjustment. So it's very simple adjustments, which, by the way, is what my first hearing aid was like. When the analog hearing aids, that's all you could adjust was the treble and the bass and the volume. Now, once these are approved, you would be able to buy them online. You'd be able to buy them in a store, but we have to wait until the FDA rules are in place. Now let's get to what the controversy is and some of the confusion. There are what are called hearables on the market. There are direct-to-consumer hearing aids. This is not an official category by the FDA. But the FDA allows consumers to waive medical evaluation before buying a hearing aid. That waiver is what these manufacturers are using as a loophole so that they can sell hearing aids directly to consumers. Now, some of these are good. Some of these are very effective. And when we get over-the-counter hearing aid rules, they will become over-the-counter hearing aids. Some of these are not safe. They will damage your hearing if you wear them. So this is where we have to say buyer beware, because these direct-to-consumer hearing aids are kind of, they're in a gray area, and the FDA is saying we're not ready to talk about them yet. There's also a category called a self-fitting hearing aid, which is right now there's only one product, and that's the Bose. And that is a hearing aid because it has amplification that you can tune to different frequencies, and it protects your hearing from loud noises. So this is a hearing aid that's sold directly to consumers, and the consumer can make the adjustment. This is likely to be probably the first hearing aid that'll be approved as an over-the-counter hearing aid. So the Bose hearing aid right now is called a self-fitting hearing aid. So the FDA has acknowledged the self-fitting hearing aid category, but it hasn't approved any of the hearing aids, okay, because they're trying to set up the over-the-counter hearing aid category. So when we get over-the-counter hearing aids, these will be part of it. So right now, the over-the-counter hearing aid category is not official. So you have to be careful if you're buying something that looks like it's over-the-counter, because direct-to-consumer market is already open. There's over 50 products out there that are direct-to-consumer. Some are excellent and will become over-the-counter hearing aids. Some are misleading and might harm your hearing. And when the ruling comes out, our hope is that will separate the good from the dangerous. So right now, if you see somebody that says my product is FDA registered, that doesn't mean anything. That just means they filed paperwork with the FDA for them to consider after they've developed the OTC rules. If somebody says it's FDA cleared, that also doesn't really mean anything. It just means that the FDA has said they can sell it, but it doesn't fit in a category. Neither of these labels, FDA registered or FDA cleared, neither of these labels means the FDA has reviewed it. FDA cleared just means the FDA has acknowledged their paperwork. FDA registered means they have sent in their paperwork and the FDA will think about it when the OTC laws are done. But right now, these terms don't mean anything. And I'm disappointed that Bose is using FDA cleared for their category of self-fitting hearing aids, because I think they have a good product. And I just think FDA cleared is a little misleading. So what you're going to see is the hearing aid category will stay there. The Phonak, Oticon, Resound, Starkey, all those hearing aid companies will stay there. And they will continue to market to the mild, moderate, and severe. And they may come out with some over-the-counter hearing aids as a way to introduce their name to the consumer electronics market. That's what we're hoping for. So the hearing aids can cost anywhere from $700 to $3,000, depending on how many features you're looking for. The PSAPs, the Bell and Howell, the Etymotic, the Sound World, those are just amplifiers. That category will stay there, but they will not become over-the-counter hearing aids unless they have a way to protect your hearing. And the PSAPs, depending on what they are, the things you buy to, they're supposed to help a hunter hear a deer, those can be $50, $100. I've seen some of the amplifiers as high as $300, but that's the category of pricing. The direct to consumer, those are the Ergo, the Lexi, the Lively, those kind of things that they are direct to consumer hearing aids. You could buy them yourself and you can tune them and hopefully it's an amplifier that protects your hearing. The ones that you just stick in your ear and they really should be a PSAP, they run about $100. But some of the higher end devices that look like a hearing aid can be around $1,500. The Bose self-fitting hearing aid, I put $500. I think it's $450 or for something. It's close to $500 that you could buy right now, and it's self-fitting. It comes with an app, and I think if you can unmute yourself on Zoom, you could fit this hearing aid. And then the new category will be over-the-counter hearing aids. And what we're hoping is that if a company like Bose can put out a good hearing aid for a mild loss, well, what about Samsung? What about Apple? What about some of these other commercial electronics companies? So we're hoping that this new over-the-counter category will really focus on the mild hearing loss and make it so that people can buy a hearing aid that is safe and effective in a consumer electronics store or online. And I think that was the end of what I had. I was going to stop sharing and see if I had made it, if I made it more confusing, or if I made it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you very much, Beth. It's time, I think, for anybody who has a new question after having heard Beth talk to raise their hand or use the little yellow hand on your reactions bar. Is there anybody who would like to speak? I think I need to be able to.
I see Ed's hand up.
I'll take that as an acknowledgement. Beth, thanks again. I mean, it was very clear and really up to date. I could not get all that information with all the work that I had done, so I appreciate that. I had a question on the OTC. Do they have protection built in, or will they have protection built in to protect me from loud sounds?
That is what HLA has asked for. When we say safe, that's what we're talking about, that it protects your residual hearing.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Unmute yourself, please.
Somebody mentioned, and thank you, Beth, that was very, very clear and very informative. I'm glad I'm at the stage that I don't have to ruin my hearing by trying out things. Somebody mentioned Regeneron. Does Regeneron have a hearing aid? I thought I heard that name and it wasn't on your list. I don't remember. Oh, well,
I don't
know.
remember that they had.
Okay, I'm just.
I think what they are doing is they're,
Yeah, just right.
I thought they were a pharmaceutical company.
They are, and they deal with a lot of things for eyes, but somebody in this who introduced himself, I think was a man, I don't remember who it was, and I heard the name Regeneron.
No, it's Mary.
Mary.
I mentioned that name because the audiologist I went to is known as Flynn Associates over on
Oh,
Main Street. And it's covered by Tufts, which is why I went there instead of Mass Eye and Ear. And I believe it's Regeneron. I was so new at it, I didn't even ask him what he was selling me for $3,200. And then I thought, well, man, I should do a little research, which is why I'm here today. But I apologize, I may have the name wrong. I thought it was Regeneron, but yeah,
Okay, thanks,
something.
Mary.
I'll look it up. Don't take my word for it.
there is some research being done by therapeutics, and I thought it was Regeneron. The idea being that would there be something that they would be able to do to it depends on what caused your hearing loss. So would there be a medical way to address your hearing loss instead of a device?
I think mine is just old age.
I tell people that I was born with a hearing loss that most people wait 60 years to acquire. I was just ahead of my time.
Gosh, you're so clear. You really did a wonderful job of.
Question, Beth. You were born with a hearing loss. Has it increased since you were born, or did you?
I popped out this way.
Okay.
No, it probably will. But I was born with I have no hearing in my left ear. My right ear is maybe 30 decibels down in the low frequencies. 1500 hertz, it starts to drop off. By 3000, it's gone. So the way I explain it is that I can talk on the telephone, but I can't hear it ring. And because I don't hear the high frequencies, my problem isn't what I don't hear, but rather what I think I did hear. Because I hear all the sounds, it's just a lot of sounds sound the same. So consonants are ambiguous to me. But if I can see you, I can see the sounds I can't hear.
I'd like to raise a question that is a little bit off topic, but it's relevant to what's happening here, today. David Clark said that he really had a great deal of trouble hearing what we were saying, here in the room. That could be addressed, it would seem to me, by closed captions. At least that would help. I mean, I'm hearing here at the COA that having closed captions on what goes out would be require somebody to sit and type. Do you know any other options besides that? Is there something that can be used that's more automatically translating the spoken word into text?
So the automatic speech recognition, which you're talking about, that is getting better and better. And the pandemic is making the technology even better because so many people are using the automated captioning tools and sending their data off to be part of the research. So the problem with automatic speech recognition is that it only recognizes words that it has previously learned. So common conversations are fine. But when you put in things like mass eye and ear, it would probably misinterpret that. We understand what it is, but it would probably come out as a different word. You can only imagine what it does to Worcester and Peabody. And we did some experiments in my systems engineering group where we actually we tested different automatic speech recognition systems for our webinars because we wanted to caption the webinars. I had complained I couldn't understand the webinars, and we have people who are attending the webinars and English is not their first language. So they also benefit from captioning. But when we took a technical presentation and put it through the automatic speech recognition, the resulting captioning was a completely different subject. In fact, it made one guy was talking about automotive product lines, and the captioning made it sound like it was a religious lecture. It was so different that we said, okay, we can't do that. Now there are some apps that you can use on your phone. I'm looking to see if I have any of them. I don't like the apps because they ask to use your microphone and they want to send the data back to the company. And I teach cybersecurity classes, so it just bothers me. But I know people use them. So there's an application called Otter, that OTTR, that's been popular. And I'm trying to remember one of the other ones. And if you look on the Zoom website, some of those automatic speech recognition systems are integrated into Zoom. They have a partnership with Zoom. HOAA has been fighting, saying, okay, you've figured out all the electronics, you've figured out all the technology, you've figured out all the protocols, don't charge me for it. And that doesn't work, right? So if you have an Otter account, it only allows you to have so many hours a month. You have to pay to get the captioning. So that's, I do know there are automatic speech recognition programs that work with Zoom. When we have a meeting with the Hearing Loss Association, we hire a captioner. This is somebody who's been trained in the stenographer's equipment. So they're not typing the letters for the words I say, they're keying in the phonemes. And that's what allows them to write, we call it writing, they write the words at the same rate that we speak them. And and when we do that, the captioning comes right up in the bottom. So yeah, we find that the captioning is very helpful for the Zoom.
I have a question. Wait a minute.
You were on. I heard you say I have a question, and then you shut yourself off. There you
Okay,
go. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that Regeneron might be doing research on seeing if there are medical ways to improve some people's hearing. Well, can they really diagnose what caused your hearing? In other words, or for many of us, I know I'm in the mild category based on your descriptions, thank you. Can they really diagnose what caused your hearing, and is that important? Or is it just that we became elders? In other words,
I once went to a presentation that talked about common causes of hearing loss. And the most common cause of hearing loss is unknown.
okay.
You have there's a common hearing loss that comes with aging where the hair cells atrophy and you lose the high frequencies and you lose some volume. But that's very typical. But for someone like me, when I was born with the hearing loss, my parents were like, where did we get this from? And then my sister was born 2 years later, and she had very good hearing. In fact, she could hear store alarms and dog whistles. And so they were like, well, what's up with that? And then they had 3 of us. And so when my youngest sister was born, she had very, very little hearing and is considered deaf. And so if they averaged us all out, we might have normal hearing across the 3 of us, but the hearing buckets just weren't. And both of my parents are hearing. But we did have my aunt that married into the family and divorced out and told a lot of secrets on her way out. She did talk about people, so-and-so had a hearing loss and so-and-so had it. So there was hearing loss in the family, but we don't know if it was hearing loss over time or if it was something that was genetic. We just have no idea. We assume it's genetic because there's 2 of us. But my sister with the hearing was she and her husband were prolific, and none of them have hearing loss.
Thank you. And also, is there any harm to, I know I'm in the mild category. Okay, so is there any harm to one's hearing if you just wait a while still? Or do I run over to Mass Eye and Ear in order to be told, wait a while?
The way we talk about it is, and so hearing aid manufacturers will joke that a hearing aid is something you wait 7 years too long to get. And then when it breaks, you can't last 7 minutes without it. So most people wait too long to get a hearing aid because what happens is our brains understand speech. Our ears hear it and our brains understand it. So when your hearing is starting to get worse, your brain is still trying to make sense of it. So what happens is your perception is your hearing's fine, people are just mumbling. Your brain says your hearing's fine, these movies aren't made well anymore. Right. And so your perception, and I saw this once because my sister's deaf, I use sign language with her. And in one of my work meetings, I had to deal with a lot of people and my hearing aid, and I thought, this is going to be awful. I'm not going to be able to hear everything. So I hired a sign language interpreter. And so I had my FM equipment going, so the person who was speaking, I could hear. But anybody who was not on the microphone, I needed the interpreter to sign for me. And at one point, somebody was talking and I was watching the sign language interpreter, and it was so clear. I thought, I really wasted the company's money. I didn't need this interpreter. And I turned away, and all of a sudden the person sounded like they were talking with marbles in their mouth. And I couldn't understand them at all. I looked back at the interpreter, their voice was clear. So and that's when I realized the power of your brain. Because
see.
I was hearing some things, but what I was seeing was making all the words clear. And so I had the perception I could hear them.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah, so my advice is if you benefit from a hearing aid, it will help you. But if you don't need a lot of features, don't fall for it. And that's actually one of the things I like about Mass Eye and Ear. I don't find them to be pushing the hearing aids. If it fits, if it's good for you, they'll make it work. But if it's not, it's not like a shop where if you don't buy a hearing aid, they've just worked for nothing.
And the people at Mass Eye and Ear in West Concord, as far as you people from Concord, that's a good, instead of going into the city?
Oh, I've gone in there. That's where my wife goes for her cochlear implant. And I had my audiologist of 20 years in Rhode Island just retired. And so my next visit will be to Concord.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Does someone else have a question for Beth? As you can see, very well informed about a lot of things. If you have a question specifically about the over-the-counter, that's good. But if you have some other question that's pressing at the moment that Beth might be able to answer, please speak it.
About something else?
You have something?
Sure. About something else, though, not OTC.
Yeah.
Yes. When we go to an audiologist, they always tell us that we should always wear our hearing aids, because if we don't, we'll turn into dummies. It affects our brain if we don't continue to use our hearing aids all the time. I wonder if you could speak to that a little bit.
Well, I think the real issue is that when you only use your hearing aid like for special occasions, right? It's you don't get used to it. And so when you're using a hearing aid, your brain adjusts to how it sounds. And so you are going to benefit from a hearing aid more if you wear it all the time. I don't think that when you turn it off, it lowers your IQ. So I wouldn't go that far, but it does make a difference. I have an app on my phone that will I can change my program and all that, and it tells me the average time I wear a hearing aid. And it tells me that over the last year, I have worn my hearing aid an average of 14 hours a day. So that means I wear it from the moment I get up until the moment I go to bed, and I do take it off when I take a shower. And I also take it off to recharge it if I'm doing things that drain the battery. But I wear it all day because it makes it easier to hear. And if it's easier to hear, we're more likely to be engaged with conversation. We're more likely to be doing things. When I was working and I had an analog hearing aid, I was exhausted. So when someone suggested going out after work, I thought, oh, my head, I can't do that. I just got to go home and rest my eyeballs. I can't take another minute of somebody talking to me. And so, it made me very isolated because I opted out of things that would be helpful. I mean, Ed does the sessions on meditation and mindfulness, and there's been studies that show that someone who needs a hearing aid and doesn't, they are going to self-isolate. And it affects now, I disagree with the people who say if you don't get a hearing aid, you're going to get dementia. So correlation is not causation. Okay. There's There's also statistics that show that there are more shark bites when there's higher ice cream sales. That doesn't mean ice cream causes shark bites. It just means it's in the summer. So people are more likely to suffer from dementia if they are self-isolating, if they're not engaged, if they don't have a positive body balance, if they don't have the things that make it so that your mood is better, right? That's the real issue. And not having a hearing aid is contributing to that, because we tend to say it's too hard. So if it's too hard to do things that you enjoy, if it's too hard to interact with other people, if it's too hard to be creative, it's going to affect you in other ways. You know, and plus we talk about our hearing loss as something that's, you know, I say it's my hearing loss, but let's face it, I share it with everyone I try to talk to. You know, the person that I'm checking out my groceries with, if I don't hear them and they ask me a question, it just slows everything down. So it affects them too.
I testify to the exhaustion. I've felt that many
Yeah.
times. And the hearing aids don't totally do away with it. I mean, even with the hearing aids, you can get exhausted.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I advise people when they get a hearing aid that you say, okay, that's the first step. Okay. If you want to lose weight and you buy a treadmill, buying the treadmill is a good first step, but you actually need to walk on it, and there's probably other things you need to do. You know, maybe you need to adjust your diet and not have as many of those Girl Scout cookies or whatever else is your downfall, the ice cream leading to the shark bites. So it's getting a hearing aid is a very good first step, but a hearing aid only helps you in one-on-one situations. In a noisy environment, if you go to a restaurant, the hearing aid makes it worse because it amplifies everything. So that's, my hearing aid has a feature that I can adjust it to reduce the background noise in a restaurant. So I find that helpful. I use assistive devices all the time because I find it just makes it easier. So, you know, I want to hear better, but I also want to hear easier.
I certainly understand about the restaurant situation. What do you do specifically that makes that more bearable for you? I have sometimes actually removed my hearing aids in a restaurant because I think I've been able to hear better without them.
Well, if your hearing aid is just amplifying all the background noise, that is true. So the first thing is, I have always liked to eat early. As I get older, it's actually expected. But when I was younger, I still like to go for the early bird special because I always like to go early. And part of it is it's not as busy. So I tend to go to a restaurant when it's not as busy. If it is crowded, when I step up and ask for a table, I explain to them, I have a hearing loss. I need a table that is well lit and away from the noise. Now, sometimes they can't accommodate me, but since I go to the same restaurants all the time, they've kind of gotten used to it.
Get the
And they
idea.
know, right? So they know, you know, I have favorite tables based on it being bright so that I can lip read. Because what is it with the, you know, lower the lights so that you can't see your food and you can't understand the person you're eating with? I don't understand that as an experience, but that's what they do. And very often I will ask for if the music is too loud, I will say, I need you to turn down the music. And it's easier for them to turn down the music than to move me to a different table. So
I've been
so I
noticing
ask.
I've been noticing the yellow hand on your screen, David Clark. Does that mean that you have something you'd like to say?
Yes, I do. Kind of an unfair question, but I think a lot of us think of it a lot of times. We have trouble seeing, we go down to the glasses. Sometimes reading glasses just cost $10, $15, or prescription just a few $100s. If we have hearing, we're in trouble. We're into several $1,000s.
Mhm.
Is that justified, or will competition bring it down? That's really keeps people like me away from buying hearing aids, or my wife with $3,000 or $4,000. That's a lot, but
agree.
obviously it may be worth it. But
Mhm.
is there a way to bring the price down? Is what I'm saying.
That is the primary reason. There's two reasons that the Hearing Loss Association supported the over-the-counter, the hearing aid bill. One was this may bring down the price, because if you can go on Amazon and buy a self-fitting hearing aid for a few $100s, is that going to put pressure on a company like Phonak to reduce their price? The other thing is, part of what's coming out of this is a trend toward having audiologists unbundle their pricing. When an audiologist sells you a hearing aid, what you're paying for in that $3,000 is the hearing aid plus their time. They are budgeting for you to come in for free follow-up visits, for the ear mold, for the time that they had to take getting trained in how to configure this hearing aid, for their building, for their staff, for the candies they have out on their counter, for everything that they're licensing, all of their overhead. That's what's going into the hearing aid. So if you're buying a hearing aid and you don't have to pay for all that overhead, then it would be cheaper. But if you have trouble with your hearing aid, you're now going to want to go to an audiologist or go to Mass Eye and Ear and say, this thing's not working, can you fix it? And they would have to charge you a fee just to fix it. So we expect that the audiologist will then be able to unbundle it, because it would be acceptable for you to come in for hearing aid maintenance or to have the hearing aid fitted, and then they wouldn't have to pile that onto the hearing aid cost. The other thing we're fighting for is having it covered by insurance, because right now it's hit or miss if it's covered by insurance. But there is a bill that passed the House to have it covered by Medicare. That's the good news. That's good news. The bad news is it's in the Senate and it's part of the Build Back Better plan.
Oh,
So,
I
but
saw
we do expect that the prices will come down. And the other thing is that a company like Phonak, they may be able to charge less for their hearing aid if they have a low-end hearing aid that it goes to more people. So if they can get the mild hearing loss market, then they will have the volume that they don't have to charge as much for the hearing aids that are designed for moderate and severe.
I think
So we
Irene,
really do hope the prices will come down.
I think Irene had a question. Did you have a question?
Yes, I was just curious if there's a particular site you could recommend that we follow. Just try to follow whatever the FDA is doing, or just go to fda.com or something like that.
You can look at the FDA. What I would recommend would be the Hearing Loss Association. Let me see if I can get their website, because they have a page that's been tracking it. And a lot of the information I gave you today came from a webinar that they conducted. So it's hearingloss.org is their website. And Yeah, so let me,
Thank
let me share the screen and you could see it. They have a, um, I'm sharing the wrong screen or I'm sharing,
You clicked the right one.
are you seeing the over-the-counter hearing aid devices or are you seeing my Brady Bunch screen?
No, over-the-counter OTC hearing devices.
Right, so this is hearingloss.org. Let me go to the main site. So if you go to hearingloss.org,
Yes, uh-huh. Mhm.
and then you go to hearing help. And they have information about hearing aids. They have over-the-counter hearing aid devices. And this talks about, and this is, they put the most current information there about
Thank you.
what's going on. And so they have all the FDA, what's going on,
Good, oh,
what
good.
the
Yeah,
proposed rule is. And they have some articles that explain what the options are.
thank you.
And
Thank you. Ed, you had something?
Yes, I wanted to share, Beth, and for the rest of you, my experience at Mass Eye and Ear in Concord. I purchased Oticon 2.5 years ago for about $5,600 for a pair. And when I went back saying I'm preparing to budget for my next purchase in a year or two, what's the price? They said $3,200. I said, $3,200 for one? She said, no, $3,200 for both. I said, it's dropped $2,000. How has that happened? And she said, well, we're going to charge you separately for the visits. And secondly, if you want to pay $700, it'll cover all your visits for 3 years. So for 3,200 plus 7 is 3,900. That's still a significant drop.
right.
The other is at Costco, they're selling Phonax
Mhm.
at $2,900
Right.
for a pair.
Mhm.
And so I've been trying to check out the quality of Phonax because one of our colleagues in this group has it. And also I know that when you go to shopping centers like Home Depot or Costco, it may be the same brand, but it may not be the same model. And so.
Right, and Costco has a good program. I did check that out. They have, it's an audiologist that fits it. What Costco has is volume. So they have limited hearing aids. They're only working with the one manufacturer. And so they're able to get a discount because they're buying so many.
Right,
And so yeah, the Costco is a good option.
right.
What I go to my audiologist for is I go in and I say, I want to wear a hearing aid in these situations. I want you to do the research on what will work the best. And so then they come back with, so I'm using my audiologist as a hearing life designer. Right there, I could go do the research on my own, but I don't know what's out there. They're going to conferences, they're talking to the manufacturers, they know what was coming. Now, I also want to say I'm not surprised that the price went down because a lot of the innovation in the hearing aids is about 5 years old. That's where they were figuring out how to work with Bluetooth, how to make the hearing aid rechargeable, how to have the hearing aid pick the program to be in based on the environment. So all of those things, Phonak has they all have some kind of an automatic flow, and they've made it work in the hearing aids, and Phonak now is combined with advanced bionics. So the same algorithms that go into a Phonak hearing aid are being used in the advanced bionics cochlear implants. And so that's that you're getting the momentum of that research. I think Resound works with Cochlear Americas, I think. So each of the cochlear implant companies has paired up with a hearing aid company. And so you're seeing some momentum in the research. And then Phonak has now come out with their they have a chip that goes across all of their products that has the streaming that I use with the TV. It also works with my Roger, which is FM, and it works with Bluetooth. So I'm able to get all of that in a small package. And when they make it one chip that goes into their cochlear implants and their hearing aids, you know, it makes the manufacturing easier.
Anyone else?
Sure.
I don't see anyone else.
Beth, I have a question which is a little off. I have a PC, runs Windows 10, and I've been unable to get it to communicate via Bluetooth with my hearing aids. Is that something that you do, or do you know can be done?
I'm using Bluetooth right now,
Okay, on
and
a
it's
PC.
Windows 10. I'm on my tablet. But this tablet has Bluetooth built in. My other tablet, I have to get one of those dongles and connect it. I don't have Bluetooth automatic in my old tablet.
Okay,
So you have to have Bluetooth as one of your connection options.
I do, but it doesn't work. I can't pair. So that's
Oh, what kind of hearing aid do you have,
Darky.
Darky? So
What do you
one of the things I have to be careful of is I connect my hearing aid to my cell phone. That's how I listen to audiobooks. That's how I make cell phone calls. And I also have music that I play on there. And I have Ed's meditation stuff on my phone so I can listen to it. And then I have my tablet and I connect by Bluetooth with it. And then I also have, what else do I have? Oh, my WPI laptop has Bluetooth. And so I have a bunch of things that have Bluetooth. And my hearing aid will only allow 2 connections at the same time. So there's sometimes I can't connect to my tablet and I think, what now? What did Bill Gates do to me now? And then I say, oh, wait a minute, I got to turn off the Bluetooth on my phone, and then I can connect to the tablet. And the reason for the limitation is because the Bluetooth drains the battery. So they don't want you to inadvertently be connected to your TV and your phone and your computer and your car and just drain the battery in your hearing aid.
Okay.
Anyone else? Yes.
Do these products work with Apple computers? You people are talking about Microsoft and stuff like that. Do
They work with Apple. They work with Apple. I have my Bluetooth is not a company protocol. That's an industry protocol. And so when Apple and Microsoft both support Bluetooth.
Okay, and so then the hearing aids. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Now the problem with Bluetooth is you have to be close to it, right? So if I have my Bluetooth, if I forget that I'm listening to a book on my phone and I wander away from my phone, I have to, oh yeah, I got to go pick it up. My FM goes further, my TV goes further, but the Bluetooth is nice. I really liked it. The other thing I like about it is the way the Bluetooth is configured. It thinks my hearing aid is one of those fancy Bluetooth headsets. So when I record lectures for my for WPI now, I use my hearing aid microphone becomes my microphone for my recording. And when I'm talking on the telephone, it just, my hearing aid becomes a microphone for the phone. So I don't have to wear any other I used to have to wear a loop and a micro, I had to lasso myself and get myself all configured in order to talk on the phone. It was, and you could never do it by the third ring. You'd have to practice that.
Ed had a comment? Ed?
Yes, Beth, I have to leave. I just wanted to thank you, and I'm glad to see you're still breathing well.
Yes.
Again, it is a monumental task that you accomplish in such an articulate, brief way, and I appreciate it. Give my best to Tina.
I will. Namaste.
Namaste. And
Thank you, Ed.
bye to the rest of you. I hope to see you again next month.
Okay, anybody else?
I have a question.
Mary?
Okay, it's Mary. If a person has mild hearing loss, say I do, is it almost a known trajectory that as you age, your hearing loss will become more severe, and you will need? Is that part of medical history for most people, do you think, or has enough research been done on it?
Just depends. It really depends. Not,
Yeah,
that would be like saying that everyone's going to need knee replacement surgery.
right.
You know, you don't know. I have to say, my father was 79 years old when he died, and I had to keep telling the hospice, and we expected him to live another 20 years. Cancer grabbed him young. And I had to tell the hospice staff, he hears fine. I'm the one with the problem. He had no hearing loss at all. He heard the same as when he was young.
Okay.
So if you have a mild loss now, I wouldn't be afraid of it getting worse. It is what it is, and it might that may be it. The
Outbreak.
age-related hearing loss comes from atrophy in the hair cells in the cochlea, and so the hair cells associated with the high frequencies are the ones that are usually impacted. And some people, they lose a little bit of the high frequencies and then it just stops. Some people, it continues to get worse.
Mhm.
And if you get good hearing aids that have multiple programs on them, then if your hearing does get worse as you get older, your same hearing aids are still going to work for you. They just got to be reprogrammed.
Right. Yep, that's true. That's true. Although the thing is, I view my hearing aids as a car. And, I once was very proud that I was able to nurse my hearing aid along for 8 years and it was working. And then when I went to replace it, all I realized was how much technology I had waited too long to get. So, so I put myself on a 4 to 6 year program and I replace my hearing aid when I'm ready to see what's new and interesting. And then my old hearing aid becomes my gym hearing aid and my backup hearing aid. I actually have, I do the same thing with sneakers. I buy new sneakers every 6 months. And then my old sneakers become my garden shoes. And then the ones, the other ones become the ones I clean the garage with, and I just demote them until they go to the trash. So I've had my current hearing aid for 2 years, and in another 2 or 3 years, I'll be talking to my audiologist at Concord Mass Eye and Ear saying, what's coming?
Well, I may be about to have two pairs of hearing aids. It's something that I feel I need because I'm forgetful partly, and I'm capable of losing a hearing aid, and it's especially likely to happen since we've had to wear these masks, and
Right.
take your mask off. It's maybe.
Oh yeah, the hearing aid goes flapping. I know. The mask is a.
I think I need
That's
backup hearing aid.
Right. No, so when I go on a trip, I take my old hearing aid as a backup. I just tuck it in, you know. I mean, they're small, so it doesn't take much room. I take it with me.
Right. All right, I think we're gonna need to wrap up here. It's really been a very good session. We've heard a lot from you about the topic, and we've heard a lot from you about other things as well, and it's always good information that you give.
Yep, it's a good group. I appreciate you let me join you today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.